Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Write Your Light. I am Eva Andrea, and I'm so grateful you're here. This space is all about honoring your voice, your story, and the light that only you can bring into the world. And if you enjoy today's episode, it would mean the world if you liked, commented, or shared it with someone who might need a little extra light too. Your support truly helps this community grow. And if you're feeling called to dive deeper into your writing journey, I'd love to invite you to my writing circle, a warm, supporting space to write, flow, and shine together. And you'll find the link. It's waiting for you in the show notes. All right, let's jump in. Welcome back to Write Your Light, my friends. I am super happy to be back with you again. And today, I feel we will have a very special episode. It feels so guided and so divinely orchestrated, when you have that feeling that something is just meant to be. And it was my dear friend, Christian Strang, who made the connection and said to me, you got to talk to Stephanie James. And I was like, And we connected, and Stephanie is just a soul sister. I could feel it right away when we started connecting. And I can't wait for you guys to meet Stephanie and hear more about her magical, beautiful, creative life and how she co-creates with spirit. Stephanie James is a radiant soul, and she is a psychotherapist, author, and filmmaker. So we're talking to a girl here who really knows about creativity and works in this field of where healing meets creativity and transformation and spiritual awakening. So I'm so happy to have you here, Stephanie. Thank you for coming. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling incredible. It's such a joy to be with you and to be in your presence. I'm just so excited to be here.
Oh, I love that. Live from Santa Fe. And Stephanie, maybe we should start with when you hear the sentence, write your light, what does that mean to you?
Write your light to me. Yeah, it's allowing to come out what's already within. I hear that light for me is always our spark. That's our true essence. And that we get to create what our life is. That when we get to write our life, it's like our life by design, by touching that place in our essence and listening to that inner guidance, then whatever we want to create can become possible.
Yay, I love that. That's really, truly profound. So, Stephanie, I know you have had a long life as a creative and an awakened soul, and creating from that space. And I would have loved us to start with diving into what does your creative process look like? How does it start? And yeah, take us with you into your creative process.
Thank you. It's so interesting because it's always divine led. Absolutely. And it shows up in different ways. But it is always, I guess I can speak to my first film, When Sparks Ignite. And I had not been a filmmaker before that. So this is about 8 years ago. And I had been doing a beautiful holding meditation that Misa Hopkins, who's a friend of Christian Strang and mine, she had given me. And it was her guiding through the process of being in the darkness. And as we know, that darkness being, she was saying, that womb space, which is where creation happens. So interestingly, I had done this meditation every night. And at about 3 months, I get done with the meditation. And as I open my eyes, I just, again, hear the inner voice. I call it, the download. And the download is because I've had a podcast now for 7 years as well. So I guess this must have been 7 years ago then, because it was about 7 years ago. The voice says, some of the most brilliant minds and serving hearts on the planet. You need to bring them together and create this film. Now, mind you, at the time, I had just gone through a divorce and I had about 67 cents in my savings account. So it wasn't like, oh, this is great. I've got all the resources. I didn't. And I trusted that voice. And I knew that this was really something important to bring through. And so as I started those conversations with some of the incredible spiritual people I had connected with on my podcast that had become friends, and what happened is people that were incredible luminaries and thought leaders in the world came together and came to Fort Collins, Colorado for this beautiful 3-day filming event where part of my guidance was it's not about having people come on stage, do a presentation and leave and you just film that. That's nothing. It was having people come together 3 days ahead of time so that they could, there were 12 of us all together. And we got together, and what we did is we meditated together, we sang together, we played music together, we danced together. We just had this incredible alchemy that was created. And so we did individual interviews. I interviewed people individually and then moved into the second day, what we called Lights of the Round Table. And we had 12 of us sitting around this big round table, and it was all being filmed, these gorgeous conversations about how do we take the long view? How do we, and this is before COVID. So we didn't even know, what is true love, not just romantic love, but what is love and healing, and how do we make change in the world? And so these gorgeous conversations, then the following day, we brought to a live audience. And what was so unique as well is these presenters who get paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak, everyone came for free. They believed in the project. They saw the beauty in this, and how important it is that we start showing people that it's the difficult and challenging times we face that then can become the match point that ignites something within us that become our gift to the world. And it was it was so phenomenal. Every presenter stayed in the room and held space, sat in the audience, became a part of the audience. And so it was this loving, beautiful community where the message very clearly is we're all the same height. We're all these incredible golden threads in the tapestry of humanity. And on the film poster, you'll see what it says. It says, your period healing period matters, period. Each one of us are that essential thread in lifting one another.
Wow. I just sit with this sense of total awe and honoring in my heart listening to this story. Thank you for sharing. It's like, I know what I want to watch tonight. Where can I see that movie?
Yes, you can see it on Humanities Stream Plus. If you go to
Mhm,
humanitiesteam.org,
mhm.
they have so many beautiful offerings. It really is the largest consciousness educational platform on the globe. And so I
Wow.
was so honored to
Mhm.
become a part of that and have my film there.
Wow, that's so awesome, and I'll put the link for that in the show notes as well, because I'm sure others also who are listening here would love to watch that movie, and it feels so divinely guided. I hear the kind of miraculous that came in because you dared to listen to that voice and said yes to the calling. And I guess that is always a thing, right? When we have our callings in our creative journeys, it's like the hero always are called into the unknown. And we often meet our resistance to the call. Did you have any resistance at all coming up, or was it just easy for you to say yes to it?
I absolutely said yes to it. When I get these kind of callings, they're so strong that it's like, for me, there doesn't feel like another choice. I don't let myself get into fear, or I don't let myself go down the what if
Mm.
storyline.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. I mean, the doors were opened one after another. Jacob Lieberman, who's in the film, who was an incredible visionary scientist, he lives in Maui, and he had been on my show several times. And I'd had a friend gift me, my daughter and I, a trip to Maui. And so we got to hang out and really get to know each other. So he was my partner in saying, okay, who should we have in this film? And ironically, I was going to Santa Fe to visit Misa, who I just spoke of, and she is also in the film. She's an incredible, divine, feminine guide in this world. And so I came here to stay with her, and I told Jacob, hey, I'm going to Santa Fe. And he said, well, you need to get a hold of Larry Dossey, who Larry Dossey is one of the consciousness pioneers of our time. His book, One Mind, I had interviewed him on this book, which is phenomenal for anyone. And so he said, and then get hold of George and Sedina Caponelli, who were television and film producers, also here in Santa Fe. And so I just emailed these people, and they were so beautiful and open-hearted. And Larry Dossey said, come have dinner with my wife and I. And the Caponelli said, yes, come meet us for breakfast while you're here. And it was during those conversations, and when I met with the Caponellis, they loved it. And they said, we want to be a part of this. We want to be in your film, and we'll connect you to our award-winning film crew. And so
Wow.
it was that kind of serendipity that continued to happen. And, I'll never forget meeting at dinner with Larry and Barbie Dossey when Larry reaches across the table and puts his hand over mine. And he just said, Stephanie, how can I refuse? He said, I feel like we're passing the torch to
Mm.
you.
Mm. Makes me feel like crying. Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this story. I feel this is such an encouragement for anyone who's on this path of, stepping into your dharma, and that surrender it also is of, we don't always see, or we rarely see where we are going, but we are guided, right? And then something comes in
Yes.
that is so much greater than ourselves and more goes beyond what we could have imagined for ourselves, right? That story really shows me that. And when it comes to your writing process, would you like to take us a little into that as well? So, like, when was the first time you kind of felt this writing flow? When I know that you have just published your third book, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. But it's like
Yeah.
you've written
Yeah.
3 books, right? So you have a lot of experience also as a writer. Um, what does it look like for you?
It is, again, it's I call my higher power the divine. And I really feel like the divine flows through in those moments, and I just show up at the keyboard. And I will share with you just a brief story about the last book, only because it was so phenomenal in, again, that divine guidance and listening to the call and saying yes. Because the truth is, we all have this inner GPS. We all have this, I always tell people, none of us are special, and we're all special, right? So it's not that I'm special. I just listen. I've learned to really listen and tune in. And so everyone has this ability to stop and pause. And in these silent places, we hear this. Well, this calling actually happened during a conversation, and I had Neil Donald Walsh on my show. And if you know him, he was the author of the Conversations with God series, and just such an incredible spiritual leader on the planet. He and I got on that Zoom call, and kind of like you and I, where it was just this heart resonance. And so we didn't even get to the interview for half an hour. We were just talking and laughing and sharing life stories. And at one point, he just paused and he said, Stephanie, you're going to write your next book, and you're going to start tomorrow morning. And this book is going to have a global impact, and I will endorse this book.
Oh, I get chills. That's fantastic.
And that was it. And I showed up the next morning at the keyboard. And
Who wouldn't have?
yeah, I mean, it was so direct.
Yeah.
And so what was fascinating too is my first 2 books, they each took 9 months. It was like gestating a baby. It was like having a pregnancy, and then these book babies were born into the world. And this book was a little under 6 weeks. I mean, it was the divine was waking me up at 4:30 in the morning some mornings, and I would just be on the keyboard for 3 hours, and just as long as it was being I would just show up, and so whatever was coming through, I would just let come through, and then interestingly, during that time, and I don't wanna talk too much about the book now, but I think it's fascinating because tapping into that divine flow, then other people started showing up within that 6-week period who wanted to be a part of the book, like Wayne
Mm,
Dyer's daughter, Sage Dyer, and his wife, Marceline, and Stephen Simon, who is the award-winning, Academy Award-winning film producer of What Dreams May Come,
mm,
with Robin Williams and Cuba Gooding Jr., um, Ariel Ford. I mean, Suzanne Giesman, who's a renowned medium who, she's got a 5-year waiting list for people to even speak with her. And so it was like all these people that wanted to share their stories. And
mm,
so they're woven in just this beautiful way. But again, it was just listening and showing up, listening and showing up, and
mm.
allowing ourselves to be the conduit, because I do believe this all wants to come through us. This creative people will say to me, "Oh, I'm not a writer. I'm not a creative." Yes, you are. Everyone is a creative, and it's really just opening up to that flow and allowing it to come
Exactly.
through you, trusting that.
Mm. Gosh, I love this so much. Wow. It's incredible. And what a story, what a journey. It's like really also showing us something about what is possible when we allow ourselves to trust that guidance and that inner GPS you spoke about. I really love that. And I couldn't agree more. We are all creatives. We have access to it. And of course, there are skills and there are things we can learn, but uh, it's all about the connection deep down,
Yes.
right? Um, so, wow, can't wait to hear more about all the magic around your last book. Um, but before we go deeper into that, it's like, I don't know, now my questions are mm, like, do you have any rituals? Do you have any kind of way to connect? Or what does it look like for you? Do you meditate or, yeah, whatever is
Yeah.
your way? Yeah.
Yes. And there's not just one way. I've used so many different ways throughout my journey. I've been meditating for 28 years now, and that meditation has taken different form.
Tell us about
Sometimes well,
mm,
yeah, because sometimes, like right now, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico 6 weeks ago, and so part of my meditation time right now is walking, because I live now in this for the first time in my life, I live in the country. I live on 5 acres, and so my dog and I go and take these gorgeous walks through nature, down these dirt roads every day, and there's mountains surrounding us on all sides, and it's absolute connection with the divine. I mean, it's giving me the chills to say it even right
mm,
now. Um, and so and it's interesting because even yesterday in my walking, I made myself stop and just listen and just be with the birds. There's so many birds, and feeling the sun on on my face, on my shoulders, and just being in that moment. So that's, to me, that's communion with the divine. This morning, my practice looked a little bit different. Um, I actually journaled this morning because I'd had this really incredible experience last night, meditating and really having a lot come through with a friend of mine who we were actually on the phone with each other, but I really was able to tap into this meditative state for a couple hours. And so it was just like a whole bunch of divine flow, and it was just this beautiful, interaction. So I wanted to journal about that, and then right after that, I just went into meditation for 20 minutes.
mm,
And then I'm one of those people that I see, even with my eyes closed. I have just lights and colors and designs, and so I really experience that as that divine energy, whether someone would call that, I don't know, guardian angel, spirit guide, whatever that is. I really have access to it when I close my eyes, and so I was really able to tap in this morning.
mm.
And so for me, I think the calling for all of us, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy. We have a world that's, we live in this beautiful duality. So we're getting pulled out of, our beingness in some ways to look and see and experience. And sometimes if it's our phone or social media, we can really get sucked down the rabbit hole, and then we get distracted from ourselves. So
Mm.
there are some beautiful practices, and for your listeners, I would invite them to really go to, there's a beautiful, it's on YouTube, and I always want to say it's master alchemy. I always want
Mm.
to say it's magic alchemy, but it's not. So if you go to master alchemy, and it's literally a guided meditation that helps you go into the center of your mind, and you experience this beautiful coming into yourself where you're looking at the world behind your eyes.
Mm.
Instead of being drawn out here, it's this beautiful, I do this with my clients a lot, and they love it. It's this gorgeous sense of being within your own beingness.
Mm.
And I think that's where we connect with the divine. When we stop the
Mm.
distractions, we come to the center of ourselves and we become in alignment.
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, that's a very beautiful invitation. Yeah. Ah, and I love how it's interesting because I think no matter who I have been talking to in my podcast till now, in different ways, very different types and personalities, but they all point at listening and becoming still as the starting point for creativity. So it's just a beautiful confirmation that you're saying that here, and also how I experience it myself. And that's also why, in my writing school, I have a writing school, a spiritual writing school, and I have like lots and lots of writing meditations because I feel that when we connect first, then it flows, right? It's like that is so. I'm very curious about checking out the one you also talked about here. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes, yes. And I find that to be true as well when
Mm.
I'm, either, being as a transformation guide or as a psychotherapist, it's getting out of your own way. So when I just become the channel for that healing energy to come through me, to me, and through me, I'm not healing anyone. They're healing themselves. But I'm allowing whatever the words are, whatever can help open up, the conversation, open up this person's heart. I just, that is my prayer, that it just flows to me and through me. And so it's holding space for that. Stephanie
Mm.
James, I don't have to sit there and think about anything. It's not, oh, I'm going to remember this theory I studied in graduate school. No, it's I am present with this person. And as we drop into the space together, it's allowing that divine energy then to come through. And that's where the healing takes place.
Mm. Oh, yes, girl. I want to have a session with you. Yeah.
I would love to. I
That's
would love to.
that's
I love doing transformation sessions with people. It's one of my biggest gifts to
I know.
myself because,
Uh-huh.
as you know, I mean, witnessing other people's healing is
Mm.
truly a gift.
Yeah, it's the best. I know what you mean. Yeah, totally. Oh my God, I love this. So, Stephanie, um, let me see. I love how because we just go down this road and I have these questions and I'm like, okay, let's just go a little quirky here. Is there anything quirky or kind of weird about the way you sometimes become creative that we should know about? Do you have any weird rituals or funny things you do or how you procrastinate? I don't know. Maybe you never do that. Yeah, see?
I mean, it's funny that you say that. My oldest daughter, Acacia, and I talk about this a lot. We have very similar inner gears when it comes to, like, if I have to do a task, let's say like write something for the media, or write something that is not a book, it's not about flowing. I
Mhm.
will procrastinate that, to the last minute. And then thank God it will just flow through at the end. But As far as having any quirky rituals, I don't know that I have quirky rituals. I think something that can be a misperception sometimes. Um, I have a very high um baseline of joy in my being. That's just who I am. And so the misperception is that I wouldn't feel sad, or I would never be angry, or I wouldn't feel any of these other darker emotions. So I guess if there's any ritual that helps me in my process, in entirety, is to be with whatever's coming up for me in the moment. You and
Mm,
I were just talking before the podcast, and both of us, not that far in the past, going through divorce. And even if everyone says, okay, this is okay, it still can be very, very painful and gutting. And so, not to do, when I just went through mine last June was when my marriage ended, and it was my choice. And yet I was gutted. I mean, I just felt so gutted. And so instead of doing spiritual bypass, or instead of trying to intellectualize it, or just, process it away, it was really just being with it,
mm,
being with that depth of pain, feeling that, and crying. I mean, I think I cried for loss in my life I had never even cried for before, more than just that situation. And by doing that, I was still writing the book. I was still writing the book. It was like, whoa, there was lots of creativity and lots of flow happening through me and to me,
mm,
with just being wherever that was, in that depth of sadness, in that desperate feeling of like, whoa, I had to look at not only what he had done, but how did I contribute to this
mm,
dynamic? And again, holding that pain, and how, working on, okay, how now do I more deeply befriend and love myself?
mm,
How do I come to the deepest levels of surrender and acceptance that this is what's here? So to me, those I don't know that it's quirky or weird, but it's definitely, I think, for me, one of those keys to continue the creative flow going
I
is to
love
be
that.
with it,
Hmm.
to be with it.
That is so good. So good. It's funny, I just did a reel yesterday in the spirit of Easter, where we are doing this recording now, right? And about how the deepest darkness is often where our brightest art spring from, right? So there is something about when we allow that darkness, as I hear you say, and like allow the dark night of the soul, then
Mhm.
it's activating something in us as well, even if it doesn't feel maybe so much like it in the middle of it. So thank you for bringing that up. I love that. And it's like you're not blocking the feelings, and then you are not blocking the flow either. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
So
that's so beautiful, that the dark night of the soul doesn't need to mean that everything stops.
yeah,
By
exactly.
allowing yourself to be in the depths, you continue to allow that flow. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. And of course, it can look different for all of us. I remember for myself when I went through that phase, there was many tears, and there was a total, but there was also a sense of I'm being written, and I can't really write anything right now, and it came later. So it's different for all of us. But thank you so much for taking us with you into that. And yeah, you're just such an inspiration, Stephanie. I just love the way you dance with life and allow yourself to be formed by life and
Mm.
guided. I know you live a very guided life, and I'm just so curious. I want to hear everything. um, do you have like what would you say is your muse? Do you have some special guides, or is it just a feeling, or how would you describe your relationship to your muse in a way? Okay, could it be different from time to time as well for you?
Yeah, it is different. I can think about, this has probably been 2 years ago, and I was meditating with a group out of Seattle, and we'd meet and meditate every Tuesday night for an hour and a half to 2 hours. It was, of course, all online. And during that time, we studied all these divine feminine archetypes, whether it was Kuan Yin or White Buffalo Woman, all, just Mother Mary, Holy Mother Mary Magdalene, all these different archetypes. And what was really interesting is what really started coming through to me at the time was green Tara. And literally my inner vision would be flooded with just this vibrant green. And I would be very aware of her. And as we studied her, I didn't get a connected feeling with, of course, everyone that we studied. These incredible divine feminine. I mean, I would feel some heart resonance, but not having that kind of inner sense. So it was green Tara, and then for a while Hathor, who very interestingly, um, I had no idea what Hathor looked like. And so I had kept having these inner visions of almost like Egyptian eyes when she would show up. And so I had written down, I had drawn it on a piece of paper, and then my meditation teacher had sent to me a picture of her, like a sculpture of what she looked like. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was just like so wild. And so I feel like because we all have those times when we're not in flow. And I don't want to have anyone think like I'm always in creative flow and I'm always in tune. I am not. Um, and I think there were times or there have been times, especially when I was really experiencing green Tara, where if someone, let's say in my therapy office even, was really struggling with something, and again, I know it's not me that can bring the right answer, or I've got this, brilliant thing I'm going to say and I'm going to bring them to enlightenment. That's not it. And I would just, in those sessions, in those moments with my eyes open for just a moment, say, I'm just calling in green Tara's healing energy. Please help, please help this person. And I cannot tell you the incredible, it was like just in that asking, something would happen. The client would have a shift or an aha, or, and so again, it was kind of getting out of my own way to become that conduit. And yeah, I would say, when you say, who is your muse? I don't think I have a muse, but I think what I do have is an incredible connection to the divine, and that I have been aware of since I was a little girl. And for the first time, I really write about that in the new book. And so that listening and that inner knowingness, again, it's not Stephanie James, but it's my essence being able to really be in contact with that divine and trust that. And so if I want to be in a flow state, I get out of my own way and I
Yes.
am still and I listen.
This is so good. This is so good. Get out of my own way and be still and listen. Yes. Take notes, everybody. And you can share in the comments if you can relate. I would love to hear from our listeners also, like how does this resonate with you, right? How what makes you connect? And I can so much relate to this myself, as I also was very connected as a little girl, and started talking to my angel when I was 6, and had that opening. So for me, that's why I think I teach creativity and writing very closely connected to spirituality, because it's like, for me, it's the same. It's like, it's
Yes.
not two separate things. It's to connect with our inner creator, that is the God energy, the expansive creative energy, right? So I love that you also have that experience. Take us back to your childhood for a moment. When was the first time you connected with something that was greater than yourself? Can you share something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and interestingly, mine was around, 5 or 6 years old too, when I really have memories of those kind of experiences coming on board. And, as I write about in the book, I can remember my first awareness of like our eternal spirit And really, I mean, I can remember what I was looking at. I remember what the rug looked like. I remember looking at my grandmother's antique buffet that was in my mother's basement and having the very distinct thought. And it was almost like a memory, it wasn't even like a child's thought. It was like, oh, yes, like we're never born and we never die. Like this just continues. And I was very, very aware of that. And also around that time, I started having what I call energy imprints of three people that would show up and just stand at my bedroom door at night. And there were
Mm.
two smaller ones and a larger one. So it was almost like an adult and then two not little kids, but two smaller, maybe I don't know, 12-year-old children or something. But I didn't think of it as scary. I didn't think of it as even spirits. It in my mind, it was just they were harmless. They were just there. And it was just night after night. It was now I could say, okay, maybe they were guardian angels, maybe. Um, and interestingly, when my oldest daughter, Acacia, was 10 years old, and stayed at my mom's house, which was the house I grew up in, she
Mm.
had the same experience of those three lights appearing to her. Because when she
Mm.
came home from that weekend, she's like, Mom, she goes, I saw these three lights. They
Oh.
were standing at my door, at the bedroom door. And it was interesting because one of my friends was with us, and I said to her, I said, okay, Acacia, hold on for a moment. And I whispered to my friend, I said, I have seen these. One is big and two is little in my experience. And I said, okay, Acacia, what were they like?
Mm.
And she's like, one was big and two were little, and
Oh.
it was like, you can't, and I
Mm.
love this. I always say, you just can't make this stuff up.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just uncanny. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Wow. What a confirmation also of your childhood experience, right? And yeah, maybe there are spirits that belongs to the house and kind of who knows?
Yeah. I
Or
don't know.
mm,
Yeah, I don't know. There's been a lot of activity at mom's house, and I do
yeah.
write about that in the book.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm curious.
Definitely. Well, and other people that would not believe in spirits, people that,
Mm.
I think about my cousin's son
Yeah.
who, there were several years there that there was a little girl about 6 years old who several of us saw at night, and not just an energy imprint, much more like, oh, there's someone standing there
Mm.
at the foot of the bed. And to have my cousin's son, who was very much this, country kid, conservative, would not believe in any of this,
Mhm.
have that experience, the night before I had that experience, staying in the same room. He had stayed there one night, and then he went to stay with my grandfather, and I stayed in that room at my mom's the next night. And so as we're sitting around the breakfast table the next morning, he goes, I have to tell you guys, I had the weirdest thing happen. And we were all just freaking out because we had been talking before that about, he
Yeah.
didn't know that I'd just had that experience, the
Uh-huh.
night before. So
Yeah.
I grew up knowing that
Mm.
other realm existed. It sounds like you did as well. It was like
Uh-huh.
very, very clear. I've had guidance and I've had incredible miracles unfold throughout my life.
Mm.
Um, and not that life was always easy. I've had incredible challenges at times, and yet kept coming back. I mean, it's just like no matter what circumstances,
Mm.
or situations we find ourselves in, that divine spark that is us within us that we're all connected to, it might get covered up, but our work is how do we excavate it? Because it's
Mm.
always there shining, no matter what might layer it, on top of that.
Mm. I love that. That's so profound. Thank you. Yeah. And that is a journey. I know that our listeners are also on in different stages of that journey, and it starts with opening up to it and starting to be curious about it. And could it be that I have that spark inside, right? So, wow. And now you're sitting with your beautiful new book that has the most amazing title. Your Big Fat Juicy Life. I love the title and everything after as well. Can we see the beauty? Do you have it here?
Yes, I have it right here.
Yay! Look at that. Oh, that's gorgeous. How does it
Thank
feel
you.
to have it in your hands now after it was kind of commented into being by Neil Donald Walsh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's been such a miracle, and such this week, this whole week, as we were talking about before we got on
Me
the
too.
interview, has been so beautiful and so expanded, and so much love rushing in from so many people who love the book and are promoting the book and sharing it with their email lists. And so, I mean, it's just, to me, this has just been such an incredible beyond experience.
Mm,
And so, your big fat juicy life and everything after is really about that. It's about, part of the book is really about befriending, if you will, that death is just the next chapter in our book of eternity. It is not the end for us. And when we're aware of that, when we really can let go, because they say, research says death is the number one fear that people have. And when
mm,
we're able to let go of that and come to this moment, to be present in this moment becomes so sacred. And this is where our creativity, this is where our joy, this is where love flows from. I always say the point of power is in the present moment. And so this book is about how we bring ourselves to that. And then what I love for your listeners as well is that at the end of each chapter, there's this tapping in where there's specific exercises so that we all, whoever's reading the book can grow and do these different things to help them get in touch with and, grow through grief or heal their relationship with death, and
mm,
how to embrace life even more fully, how to really work on how do we get the cobwebs out of our conduit so we can allow
mm.
more love and joy and the divine to just flow through in such a beautiful way.
Wow. I mean, I just had a look at the book and it seems so vivid and alive and potent. And I love that there are these ways to embody what we read as well, that you have integrated that in the book. So wow, what a gift to the readers. And I love you shared a little bit about how you wrote it, kind of the body of the book in 6 weeks after you got that prompt in a way. That's incredible. Um, and then you say it's like people came to you that was supposed to be along in the book or whose stories you're gonna put in. And wow, tell us more. Can we hear a little more and maybe some of the stories if there's something
Yeah.
you share with us, just to give
Yeah.
us a little teaser? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you one of the stories that I just think is so potent. And again, if I didn't believe in immortality at 25 when this experience happened to me, it was it. And so I have to start by saying, my daughter Acacia, because this involves her, she was 4 years old at the time, and the name Acacia means immortality in Greek. And it's the tree of life in Africa. And I had no idea, though, by naming her Acacia, ACACIA, that she was going to be my teacher about
Mm,
immortality. And so I share this in the book, this story. One of my dear aunts that I just adore, and you kind of go through some incredible experiences with her throughout her cancer journey, and she and I having these incredible moments throughout that were just profound and absolutely divinely guided and driven. Um, so you have to remember, this is, gosh, 1992, and we didn't have cell phones. And so the phone had rung, and my daughter brings me in this huge, portaphone in those days. And I was in the bathtub. So I'm speaking to my mother, and Acacia went back out to play. And my mom says to me, this beautiful Aunt Gwen of mine, who had breast cancer, they had gone in to do exploratory surgery that day. And when they went in, they found that the cancer had spread through her entire body.
Mm.
And so there was nothing they could do. They sewed her back up and they, said she's probably got about 3 months to live. So I hear this news and I get off the phone and I'm crying, and little Acacia wanders back into the bathroom and she sits on the side of the tub and she says, "Why are you crying, mama?" And because I was always so just like straightforward with her, I said, "Oh, honey, mama just doesn't want anyone to die." And she looks at me and she says, "But mama, we never die." And even though we didn't go to church or talk about God, I said to her, I said, "Oh, you mean we go to heaven?" And she looks at me and shakes her head. She's like, "There's no heaven, mama." She said, "When I was a light in the sky with God," and then she pauses and she says, "Do you remember your other mother, Dorothy? My other mother, Dorothy, was my grandmother who died when I was 13.
Mm.
Acacia never knew her. I didn't keep pictures of her. And my grandfather had remarried a year later. So the only person Acacia knew was Grandma Seal." And she says, "Your other mother, Dorothy, was a light in the sky with God and me. And so God put some of her light in me, and I got to come down and be your daughter."
Oh my God. That will make me cry. Wow. How precious.
Yes. I
Oh
mean,
my God.
and
Oh,
out of the mouths of babes, I called
yeah.
my mother and we just
Mm,
cried and
mm,
cried
mm,
um, together. And it was just such this beautiful affirmation. And interestingly,
mm,
by the time she was 12 years old, she's a very different personality than I am. I'm much more like my grandmother, honestly. My grandmother was super outgoing, never knew a stranger. Even if she knew that it was your birthday and she had just met you, she'd say, "Oh, I'm going to bake you a cake. I'll bring it over tonight." I mean, she was that kind of person. My daughter, has grown up being she's very introverted. She's an artist. She's just very soft spoken in those ways. Although when she speaks, she can be very, very powerful, but she's always been much more reserved, not that
mm,
personality. And I say that because I think it's so important at 12 years old, when we're all sitting around like this, like a big Easter, I think it was Thanksgiving, family table. And my grandfather had 26 grandchildren, not all of them there at this point, but we usually have about 22 people at our family gatherings. And he announces to the table, he says, "Out of all my grandchildren, I think Acacia is the most like Dorothy." And we all
mm,
were like, whoa. It was like, again, this affirmation, like he saw the light of my grandmother in her, because my grandmother was truly the love of his life.
mm,
And so it was like beyond Acacia's personality, beyond all of that, he could see that light in her.
mm. Oh, what a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Ah,
Yeah.
so good. Yeah. And such a beautiful thing that you also really listened and took it in, what she was actually saying, right? And yeah, brought it on into the book as well. I want to hear more stories. You're such an
Okay.
amazing storyteller.
Oh gosh, thank you. Well, and there's one that I shared on social media the day that I did a live on Facebook the day of the book launch, because we had a big party here and so many beautiful friends and family joined us on Zoom, and it was just like this wonderful celebration. And the story that I shared was actually just about it's to me it's the triumph of our spirit, and it's the spirit that's within every living thing. And it happened a few years ago. A friend of mine and I were driving back on Highway 80 from Rollins, Wyoming, this little, small town, very small town, rural Wyoming. And as we were driving on the highway, all of a sudden, I noticed this huge, commotion in the sky. And these blackbirds were chasing an eagle this, a brown eagle, and they were just like harassing it. And all of a sudden, you just heard this boom. And I saw the eagle hit the side of a semi truck and plummet to the ground. And my friend screeched on the brakes. And I had a full latte in my hand, and my latte flew into, just onto the windshield. And we skidded to this stop and pulled over to the side of the road and pulled to a place where we could be a wind barrier for the oncoming traffic to this bird. And we get out of the car, and the bird's right there at the side of the road and has one wing bent like almost backwards and one leg going out in front. And this majestic, gorgeous eagle has its head down and blood is dripping out of its beak. And my friend says, I think he's dying. And I am just like, I'm standing there looking at this gorgeous, huge bird. I'd never been near something so big and so majestic. And my heart was just taken to thinking about this bird flying up in the sky right before this, and how incredible and free his spirit must have been, and being able to look over all the landscape and to be a part of the sky. And here he was, at the side of the road dying. And my friend said, we probably should call a ranger, or someone in the forestry service that can come help. And so it was a Sunday, and we thought, oh my gosh, I hope we can get a hold of someone. And after going back in the truck, we'd each kind of go out every 5 minutes to check on the bird. And he did get a hold of someone, and they said they're an hour to an hour and a half away. Again, this is kind of in the middle of nowhere where this had happened. And he said, I know you have a lot of deadlines. You have a lot of stuff going on. They'll find the bird. I gave him good directions. Do you want to just go? And I just burst out crying. And I was just like, we are not leaving this bird. We're not leaving. And I was in the pickup, we were in a truck, and I was just holding all the love in my heart and just sending this bird just like love, love, and healing. I don't think I moved for like 30 minutes. I was just intent on looking at this bird and sending love, sending healing. And all of a sudden, the bird raises its head and it pulls in one of its wings and its legs. It's not moving. And we really had thought, it's probably just internally bleeding, because it didn't move for a long time. We were probably there an hour before it moved. And then it looked over and we made eye contact. And it was like, I could feel, it's giving me the chills now, that inner connection, that total soul, just like he and I were one. I could feel the soul of this bird. And I was telling him in my mind, in my heart, you're safe, help is coming, it's okay. And finally, an hour and a half after the call, the ranger shows up, and I have the window down to the pickup so I can hear he and my friend speaking. And the ranger says, okay, we're going to have to get this coat wrapped around the bird, and we'll take him to the raptor rescue, where he'll be in captivity the rest of his life, but at least they'll be able to save his life. And Eva, I'm telling you, it's as if the bird heard them, because in that moment, the bird hopped to its feet. It was on both feet, and it looked around for a moment. And then whoosh, this huge 6 feet of wingspan just comes up from this bird, and it just ascends up into the air. And it circles the truck once and then flies off across the hills until it was just a speck of sand on the horizon. And I was so aware of that spirit in all of us that does not want to be captured. That when in that place, in our spirit, we are all connected and we are all free.
Amen. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Ah, thank you for taking us with you in that experience.
It
that
was
is,
like witnessing the death and resurrection of this
yes,
gorgeous, incredible spirit.
I know. And also, I just feel how much it says about you and your connection that you stayed there and acknowledged the oneness with all that is in that moment, and I'm sure that your love and healing was also, giving that space to,
Mm.
as you just said, you do with the clients, right? That you allow
Yeah.
the love to flow. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It was
Wow.
so powerful. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, incredible.
Mm. That's a moment that stays with you forever, right? When you have a moment like that.
Yeah, it's transformative. I mean, the sacredness of
Mm.
life,
Yeah.
um, is so palpable, and in those moments, I mean, it's just the preciousness, the sacredness.
Mm.
There's no separation. Yeah. And again, it is about when we drop into the present moment and can be so present with whatever's happening, even though that was tragic and it was so, I mean, heart-wrenching. It was like something beautiful flowed through. There was something incredible. Literally, I said, we've just witnessed a miracle.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And I mean, if you're not already feeling like you wanted to read this book, this is, such an invitation. I love that you are bringing these magical stories into your book. And I mean, wow, where can we get it? Where can we get hold of it? Tell us more.
Yeah. So it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want people to know is that and there's a lot of stories in here that people shared about experiencing past lives. And there's stories in here about people that have had, myself included, people that have passed show up and let them know that, again, death isn't the end. And when I was doing research, it was 73% of the people that were polled said, I have had these experiences. I've had these experiences of beyond the veil. I've had these experiences, and yet we're not having these conversations. People are so afraid of being marginalized or ridiculed. And so I'm inviting people to have these conversations. So I've designed a new website called yourbigfatjuicylife.org. And people can go on there, they can buy the book, and they can connect to my other website, which is stephaniejames.world. So all my books, all my offerings, there's a trailer for the film, my retreats, everything's there. But the beautiful piece I'm so excited about on that website is people can share their own stories. I would
Mm.
love your listeners to share their own stories of how they are in connection with the divine, their awareness of that we have life beyond this 3D reality. And I hold every single story in confidence, just as a therapist and being in the mental health field, the last 36 years and a psychotherapist for 18 years, confidentiality is key.
Mm.
And so I will not share the stories, but I will respond to every email,
I
because I think
love
this
that.
is this is one of the
Yes.
ways we heal is we
Mm.
share our stories. We each
Yeah.
have these gorgeous, incredible stories to share. And so it's in community. It's as we really allow ourselves to have our voice and really share these shared experiences, then we can help raise this vibration. Truly, I feel like then it doesn't have to be something we're ashamed of or, oh my gosh, people will think I'm weird or, I'm crazy. No, these are the
Yeah.
conversations we need to be having. And so this book is a huge invitation to
Mm.
drop into your own experience and to share and join in the conversation because
It's, yeah.
each person's story really it helps liberate us all.
Exactly. I love that so much. And I'll put the links below for the listeners in the show notes so you can go and check all that out and share with Stephanie. And feel free also to share in the show notes here under the YouTube video if you watch on YouTube, because I'm also curious. I want to hear your stories. And I know, to me, it's like the most natural thing in the world because that is how I experience the world, that there is so much more between heaven and earth. It's or as they say in the Kabbalah, it's like the 99% world that is the unseen, and we live in the 1% world, right? There's
Yes.
so much more, right? So I so just cherish that you have made this book and this opening for the conversation. I can imagine it would be so good also in, I would say, like in women's circles, and in I guess you could use these stories as conversation starters in so many ways, or with your partner, with your girlfriends. Isn't that true?
Yes. I mean, that's just it. That's this invitation.
Mm.
At one part in the book, I even speak about one of the things that's been popping up all over the place lately are these things called death dinners. And death dinners are actually where people are dressing up beautifully. They go for this gourmet dinner, but the topic of the night is death. And again, it's to dispel our fears and to allow we can talk about our fears. We can talk about these are my thoughts or my ideas, or this has been my experience. And how beautiful that we open the conversation and that we can really start sharing from our hearts in a safe place. And
Mm.
that's the essential part. It's like, let's build safety, let's build community. Let's
Yeah.
build these places where we can really let our spirits soar with one another and just really share from that sacred place.
Amen, sister. That is so beautiful. Yes, and so needed. Oh, yes. Wow. So, Stephanie, as we are coming closer to maybe wrapping up here, I'm thinking, when you think of the aspiring writer who's maybe listening to this conversation, or aspiring creative, what would be your best advice? What would you tell them? Uh, how would you encourage them?
The first thing I would say, what came right to my mind when you said that, is drop in. Drop in. Drop from your head into your heart. And you can really do that easily if anyone's familiar with heart math. It's
Mhm.
where you do, head to heart coherence. So you just put your hand on your heart. You breathe into your heart space. Bring up something that brings you joy. Bring up a memory, a moment. And from that place, it's like I love was it Julia Cameron who had the morning pages? And the morning pages are you just show up. You just show up and let it come through. Trust, that it's already within you. We get the traps that we create are so often in our minds, I would say 100% in our minds. So to allow ourselves, beautiful aspiring writer out there, please give yourself the pause, give yourself that time, even if it's 5 minutes, to drop into your heart out of your head. And from that place, look at the beauty that emerges. That is the place of all creation.
That is the place of all creation. I love that so much. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful advice. And I couldn't agree more. This is, it's so funny because, like, since New Year, I started a writing circle live where we meet every second week, and we do just that, drop into the heart, and we flow right for half an hour together in a field. So it's like that's totally in alignment for those of my writers who know about that. And it's like, so I'm always amazed by what comes through us when we do that.
Mm.
It's like there's an endless stream of inspiration, right? It's like it's never drying up.
Yes. Yes.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. When you say that, what I think of right away too, Eva, is that there's no such thing truly as writer's block. Writer's block is something in a story that we tell ourselves in our
Yeah.
mind.
Mhm.
And when you drop out, exactly, I love what you're doing. I love when you drop out of that and to hold that resonant field with others. I love that you're doing that in circle.
Mhm.
So beautiful because we don't experience, there's no block because you're right. The divine doesn't stop. That energy never stops. It's a continual flow. So we just open to it. It's already
Exactly.
there. It's already there. We don't have to find it. We don't have to earn it.
Mhm.
It's
Exactly.
who we are. We are a part of that. I love the analogy of The divine is the ocean, and we are drops or waves in that ocean. We are all a part of it. So you open up to that
Mm.
which is exactly that. It's never ending, it's eternal, and it's within you. You are it.
You are it. Stephanie, this is like the most amazing high note to end this conversation on. Even if I feel I could have been sitting here all day talking to you, I have loved, loved, loved every story, every drop of wisdom that came out of your mouth. You have been such an inspiration, and I love how you have taken us so closely into your journey as well, even to your childhood. And thank you so much. I feel you are a bright, shining light and such an inspiration for anyone who is called to go this path of being a light worker and creating from that space. So thank you with all of my heart, and so many
Mm,
blessings to your new beautiful book. Can't wait to follow its journey out into the world. And I'll just say to anyone, go and get yourself your big fat beautiful not beautiful,
your
your
big,
big
fat,
fat
juicy
beauty
life.
life. Yes, go get it, have it on your nightstand and enjoy it, and give it to your friends, and really take in this energy, because it seems like not only a book but a transmission in my ears, and I so love the energy of it. Thank you, Stephanie. Do you have an ending word?
Thank you. No, I mean, it's my ending word is thank you. Thank you truly with all my heart. Just the deepest gratitude for being able to be here and be present with you and your beautiful audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we clap.
Yay!
Oh,
That was
for myself.
so
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here with us. And if you want to have a meeting with your divine muse, go to my page www.eva-andrea.com for a guided writing meditation loved by thousands over the years. Thank you for listening, everyone. Share this episode with your friends and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. So much love.